The next phylum is Glomeromycota. In continuation to the kingdom fungi, so we have discussed Chytridiomycota, Neocalimastogomycota, and all those things. Now the next phylum is Glomeromycota. So these are all the things that we have discussed, like protozoa we have discussed, Omycota we have already discussed. Now coming to the Chytridiomycota, Neocalimastogomycota, and Blastocladiomycota is already over. Now when it comes to Glomeromycota, now we are going to see what are the important fungi and their characters that comes under this Glomeromycota, and the important general features of this Glomeromycota phylum. We'll start with the general characters of this Glomeromycota. So generally majority of this Glomeromycota group of fungi are AM fungi. We can also call it as VAM fungi, vesicular and arbuscular mycorrhiza. So previously it is called as vesicular and arbuscular mycorrhiza. Now they name it as arbuscular mycorrhiza. What is VAM? Vesicles and arbuscles. Majority of the fungi, the reason for naming from VAM to AM is majority of the fungi is not producing this vesicles. Now we will see what are the functions of this vesicle, arbuscle, and all those things. So since majority of the fungi is not producing vesicles, the name from VAM they change it to AM fungi, arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi. We'll start with the general properties of this, all those things. So this VAM fungi, the main function of this VAM fungi is phosphorus. It will intake the phosphorus and feeds the plant. So phosphorus intake or phosphorus solubilization or mobilization, whatever we can call it. But the main target nutrient for this VAM fungi is phosphorus. And a little amount it can also targets on nitrogen and as well as magnesium, other kinds of potassium also it will concentrate, but little amount. But the main role is phosphorus mobilization. Okay, so solubilization or mobilization. Okay, and coming to the general properties, this Glomeromycota group of fungi are obligate endomycorrhizal fungi. What is obligate? They cannot survive without a living host, or they require a strictly living host. Endomycorrhiza. Again, there are two types of mycorrhiza. There ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. Ecto means the name itself indicates which survive outside or outside the cells or outside the plant roots. So when it comes to the endomycorrhiza, they will penetrate or go inside the plant root. Now, first of all, let's see what is this mycorrhiza. Generally, this mycorrhiza is a Greek word derived from two Greek words, mycus and rhiza. Mycus means fungi, rhiza means roots. Now we have a little bit idea. Mycorrhiza means fungal roots. It actually colonizes. It actually persists or actually present in the fungal root or plant roots. It actually associated with the fungi and as well as the plant roots. So this fungal roots generally called as mycorrhiza. This is a Greek word. And when it comes to this the Glomeromycota group of fungi, the majority of the fungi forms arbuscule. 80% of the fungi. Previously, why it is called VAM fungi? They produces both vesicles and arbuscule. That's why it's called vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. Myco means fungus, rhiza means roots. Okay, and here majority of the fungi is producing arbuscules, but very few fungi or very few of this Glomeromycota is producing vesicles, so that the name changed to VAM to AM fungi. That's what it's called as AM fungi. 80% of the fungi from this Glomeromycota produces arbuscules, and they generally land inhabiting, it actually associated with the plant roots, except a couple of fungi like if you see Geosiphon pyriformis, they actually have a different types of obligate symbiosis with another fungi called nostoc. This is also nitrogen fixing terrestrial and as well as aquatic fungi that grows in both terrestrial and land and as well as in water. So except this Geosiphon, the remaining majority of the fungi, they are land inhabiting and they have a very good association with the plant roots. Around 80% of the fungi produces arbuscules except this Geosiphon, where they have a different association with a fungi called nostoc. Nostoc functiforme, Anabina cycadacearum, so such kind of fungi. They are also nitrogen fixing fungi only. Okay, and when it comes to this VAM fungi or AM fungi, they actually colonizes with the plant roots. They colonizes with the plant roots, and it enables the intake of phosphorus. The main ingredient or main role of this is phosphorus intake. Okay, so generally colonizers are associated with the plant roots and also stimulates the development. For example, if you take phosphorus, so phosphorus helpful for good yield and as well as resistance, immunity, and all those things. It will helpful, right? So phosphorus is the main ingredient where this VAM concentrated. And as I told you, this vesicular and arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi, it actually grows between the plant roots, and there are two kinds of structures, very important kinds of structures are there, vesicles and arbuscles. Take a look at the vesicle. What is the vesicle? Generally, it is a vesicle is a globular kind of structure. I would say oval kind or globular kind of structure, some kind of pear kind of structures. Generally, it serves as a storage organ or food storage organ. So when it comes to arbuscles, there are some kind of hostorial branches or finger-like hostorial branches. They actually serve as site of nutrient exchange. So all the nutrients that was exchanged by with the help of this arbuscules. But when it comes to vesicles, vesicles only serve as a storage organ. In the recent study, it is concluded that majority of the fungi is not producing vesicles, but arbuscules are producing. As I told you, 80% of the fungi from Glomeromycota, they are producing arbuscules, but very few fungi is producing vesicles. That's why the name changed from vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza to mycorrhizal fungi or arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi. As I told you, vesicles are the food storage organ. When it comes to arbuscules, there are some kind of hostorial or some kind of finger-like structures. They're actually helpful in the nutrient exchange or whatever the nutrient that will take, as I told you, phosphorus, right? So it will exchange between the fungal roots and the host cells. So it will actually colonizes in the, especially in the root region only, in the root cells only. That's why it is called as a fungal roots. So it is colonizing in the root region. So it will actually colonizes and exchange the nutrients that is required for the host cell. So now you got some important features are the basic things about this Glomeromycotina group of fungi. So let's have some, this picture represents like a vesicle, as I told you, some kind of globose or some kind of pear-shaped structure, as I told you. This is a vesicle. So generally serves as a site of, food storage, right? When it comes to arbuscle, as I told you, some kind of branched or some kind of finger-like hostorial kind of things will be there. So these are all the serves as the source of nutrient exchange. So this, especially this, vesicles are formed in the root epidermis region. When it comes to arbuscules, they're mainly concentrated on the root cortex region. As I told you, this also produces spores, generally chlamydospores. We can also call it as glomerospores. Why glomerospores? Because they are producing the spores that comes under this Glomeromycotina group of fungi. That's why it is called as glomerospores, or we can also call it as chlamydospores for our easy understanding. So these are all another picture that representing vesicle globose structure, and when it comes to this arbuscules, there is some kind of finger-like or some kind of branches like structure, right? So this is the microscopic picture that is indicating arbuscules and as well as vesicles that was taken in the fungal epidermal cells, especially on the root region. This is another microscopic picture that is representing vesicles and as well as arbuscules. So coming to the next one, this AM fungi or arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi. Hereafter I will call it as AM fungi. As I told you, instead of WAM fungi, we can call it as AM fungi, arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi. So sexual reproduction is unknown. There is no clear evidence regarding this Glomeromycotina group of fungi. Even though it is produced, maybe zygospores, maybe it will produce. But all this Glomeromycotina group of fungi, they will reproduce mainly through asexual spores, generally called as glomerospores, or we can also call it as chlamydospores that mainly serves as a reproduction. As I told you, sexual reproduction is unknown. There is no clear evidence, but if it is produced, maybe zygospores. When it comes to asexual reproduction, the asexual spores are glomerospores or chlamydospores. And the another important feature is if you take a look at this chlamydospores are maybe produced single. The shapes may be different, maybe globose or some kind of conspicuous or some kind of oval or such kind of things are produced, but the shapes may be varies, but the chlamydospores generally produce maybe single or maybe branches or cluster like things will be formed. So if the chlamydospores are producing like a cluster or chlamydospores are producing like a bunch, if it is producing like a bunch or cluster, it is called a sporocarp. Generally, if it is producing branches, it is called a sporocarp. If it is producing single, generally it is called as a chlamydospore or glomerospore. Hereafter, I will call it as a chlamydospore rather than glomerospore. I will call it as a chlamydospore. Okay. And another important feature, as I told you, the spores may be produced single or maybe clusters or aggregated or like a branch like things will be produced. If it is producing a branches, it is called as a sporocarp. If it is producing single, it is generally called as a chlamydospore, right? So during germination of this chlamydospore, as I told you, generally this asexual reproduction is by means of chlamydospore, and they will serve as asexual spores, and they will germinate and they will produce asexual spores continuous. So at the time of germination, the germ tube may be directly produced from the germination wall, or they may be pre-germination structures like germination organ or maybe germination shield, or maybe germination structures are formed innermost layer. So they are formed only during germination, or maybe they germinate directly from the germination wall, or maybe pre-germination structures are formed like germination orb or germination shield or germination structures are formed. When we see this picture, so this picture actually representing different kind of chlamydospores that is produced by the various species of glomus or glomerospores, right? Okay, so like glomus cladonium or fascinatum or macrosporus or glomus mosa, these are all the different kind of fungi where this produce this kind of structures. Yeah, this is another microscopic picture representing chlamydospores, like some thick walled spores. These are all serves as asexual spores. Okay, so coming to this glomeromycotina, now general characters is over. Now we are discussing about this main glomeromycotina, this glomeromycota. This glomeromycota group of fungi is mainly divided into four orders. Four orders are there, and these four orders are again nine different families are there. The important order is glomerales. This is a very important order. That doesn't mean the remaining orders are not important. Of course, all orders are important, but generally I'm telling. Okay, so there are four important orders are there: glomerales, diversisporales, archisporales, paraglomerales. These are all the four orders. In the glomerales, only one important family is there, Glomeraceae, and the important genera is Glomus. When it comes to diversisporales, four important families are there: Aclosporaceae, Diversisporaceae, Gigasporaceae, Fascisporaceae. When it comes to Aclosporaceae, Aclospora and Enterospora are there. Diversisporaceae, Diversispora, Gigasporaceae, Gigaspora and Scutellospora. Fascisporaceae, only one important genera is Fascispora. And when it comes to archisporales, three important families: Archisporaceae, Ambisporaceae and Geosyphinaceae, and the important genera that comes under these families are given here. And the last one is Paraglomeraceae family, and the one important genus is Paraglomus. These are all the important families or important orders of the fungi. We must remember Glomeromycota, there are four important orders: glomerales, diversisporales, archisporales and paraglomerales, and the families and all those things that we will see in detail. So the next order is glomerales. There is only one, I mean, of course, other important fungi is also there, but the most important fungi that we need to take into consideration is glomus. Let's see some important features of this Glomeraceae. So coming to this Glomeraceae, 53% of the members comes under this glomerales are AM fungi, arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi, and they form endomycorrhiza or mycorrhiza. This general, let's see what is this endomycorrhiza and ectomycorrhiza. There are two types of mycorrhiza are there: endomycorrhiza and ectomycorrhiza, that we have already discussed in general characters of fungi, right? So endo means where this fungal roots that penetrate inside the cell. Ecto means they will stay outside. So very simple. So the members of this glomerales are general endomycorrhiza. Generally they penetrate inside, or they will produce both vesicles and arbuscules, but not all the cases. But some cases, or maybe some cases they may produce vesicles and arbuscules, but not commonly they will produce continuously vesicles and arbuscules. We have already discussed what is arbuscule. Generally it is a site of nutrient transfer, whereas the vesicle means it is a wall shaped structure where it functions as a nutrient reservoir. So they will produce chlamydospores, right? If the spores are generally how these chlamydospores are produced, they are producing asexual reproduction. The kind of asexual reproduction is a budding. So if the spores are producing through budding, this is called as a blastospores. Okay. So generally the spores are produced at the tip. Okay. And if the same chlamydospores are producing bunches or clusters or aggregated form, it is called as sporocarp, that we have already discussed. That is about the Glomeromycotina. So coming to this ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. In ectomycorrhiza, where this roots, fungal roots are actually, I would say mycelium, are actually present outside the root. So that is called ecto. Ecto means which is present outside. Endo means it is actually penetrating inside and colonizing with the root cells. So here in ectomycorrhiza, Arctic nets are present. This is the one of the most common question in majority of the cases we do study. Arctic nets are found in ectomycorrhiza. Endomycorrhiza, Arctic nets are not found. So Arctic nets are specialized kind of structures where actually penetrates in between the cells, not inside the cell, in between the cells. That is mainly present in ectomycorrhiza only. So this is about ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. But the majority of the members of this glomeromycotina or glomerales or glomus, they are endomycorrhiza group of fungi. This glomus is one of the most diverse genera, which actually designated into another groups like Pachyspora and Diversispora, even though they're actually classified in other groups. Since it is a diverse genera, it is designed to a new genera, that is a Pachyspora and Diversispora. There are three genus or three clades were there in this Glomeromycotina, clade A, B and C. So with this group A and B are glomus type. For example, glomus mosae and glomus clarodium, they are actually comes under this glomus group A and B. When it comes to glomus C, it is actually separated, since I have told you in the first point, it is a diverse genera. It is three clades are there. Clade A and B specially designed for glomus. Clade C or group C is separated. It is divided into the new genus called Diversispora. The family is Diversisporaceae and the order is Diversisporales. So clade A and B glomus. Clade C is Diversispora. So coming to this, as I told you, the common and most important species of glomus is Glomus mosae, Glomus etunicatum or Glomus fasciculatum or Glomus aggregatum. These are all the four important species of glomus where they can be cultured and sold as a mycorrhizal fungi outside or commercial production. These are all the important fungi. And when it comes to Glomus macrosporus, they cause a disease called tobacco stunt disease, which is very rare cases. This Glomus also causes plant diseases. This is one of the example. Majority of the time it is associated with the plant roots, but some cases it may cause diseases as well. Tobacco stunt disease, which is caused by Glomus macrosporus, and it is also like having a very good symbiotic association with other fungi as well. And for example, if you see the symbiotic association with this symbiotic association generally called as endocytosis, the fungi called Geosiphon pyriformis, and where we have already discussed, it is actually, even though they are considered Glomeromycota, they have the special features. It is not associated, it is associated with another group of fungi that is called nostoc, that is a kind of cyanobacteria blue green algae. So this is some common features of this glomus. So we have already finished glomerales or glomus. Now the next one is diversisporales. So in diversisporales there are four families are there: Aclosporaceae, Diversisporaceae, Gigasporaceae, and Fascisporaceae. Now we will see in detail about each and every family. General features. Okay. The first one is Aclosporaceae. In Aclospora, there are two important genera are there: Aclospora and Entropospora. Okay, so these are all the two important genera that comes under this Aclosporaceae. There is nothing to go deep into it. Just a common feature. All this Glomeromycota is all about where the spores are produced, how the spores are produced, whether they are producing auxiliary cells or type of vesicles or arbuscles, whatever it is, all those things only. Anyway, coming to this point. Aclospora, there are two important fungi are there: Aclosporaceae, Aclospora and as Entropospora. The first important point is as the two genera are there. Coming to this Aclosporaceae, they actually form spores. As I told you, chlamydospores are produced. They actually form chlamydospores or spores in a sporiferous saccule, which means the spores are produced inside the saccule. Imagine this is a saccule, which means the spores are produced inside the saccule, and they born if they are producing inside, or they are producing inside the saccule, that is called sporogenous hyphae, inside the hyphae. Okay, and here they generally produces a germination orb, which actually helpful for the penetrating or penetration of outer spore wall. So the germination orb is used for the penetration or the penetration of outer cell wall. And as I told you, two important genera are there: Aclospora and Entrospora. This Aclospora, where the spores are formed laterally, side by side. So In the sporogenous hyphae, imagine this is sporogenous hyphae, the spore are formed side, if it is producing the spore side by side, or lateral, it is called as lateral, that is called aclospora example, inside the saccule neck. So anyway, aclospora, the spores are formed side to the sporogenous hyphae or inside a saccule neck. When it comes to enterospora, they are formed inside the hyphae. The hyphae inside itself, they are producing the spores inside the saccule. I will show you the pictures. For example, if you see the cephalospora, where the spores are producing a lateral side they are producing spores inside the saccule. This is saccule. Inside the saccule, the spores are producing that too. This is sporogenous hyphae. Sporogenous hyphae, the spore is producing side by, that is called a lateral, and the spore is producing inside the saccule. This is saccule acolospora. Okay. When it comes to enterospora, it is producing just below the structure or just below this saccule and inside the hyphae. This is saccule. This is saccule, and this is hyphae. The spore is producing inside the hyphae. That is the main difference. Aclospora, the spore is produced lateral side. When it comes to enterospora, the spore is produced inside the sporogenous hyphae. This is the general difference. Coming to the next family, Diversisporaceae, one important genera are there, Diversispora. So this family is generally differ from other families in terms of germination of spores. So this Diversispora having a special type of thing is called monotype, which means a single type of thing. So only one species are present, that is a Diversispora spara, where they produce a glomus type of spores. We have already discussed what is glomus type of. So the spores are typically glomus type only, but the only thing is they produce vesicles and arbuscules. Here when it comes to Diversisporaceae, vesicles are absent and maybe arbuscules are produced, or most of the time arbuscules are produced, sometimes arbuscules are not produced. Generally here they produce glomus type of spores only. And the main difference between this Diversisporaceae and glomerales or glomus type of thing is, in glomus, vesicles and arbuscules both are produced, not continuous, not all the time, sometimes. But when it comes to this Diversisporaceae, arbuscules are produced, but vesicles are completely absent. This is one of the important feature. Coming to the next family, Gigasporaceae, two important genera are there, Gigaspora and Scutellospora. These are all the two important genera where they produce a bulbous, or bulbous means some kind of bulged sporogenous cell on the sporophore. You can take a look at this. This is sporophore, and they are producing some kind of bulged or bulbous cell on the sporophore. And they produce auxiliary cells. Here you can see if the cells are produced are side to hyphae or on the hyphae, that is called auxiliary cells, which is having some kind of a thorn like structure, that is called auxiliary cells. So this Gigaspora produces some kind of auxiliary cells and as well as a bulbous kind of spores. This auxiliary cells, the function of these auxiliary cells is unknown. And as I told you, two important things will be there. Let's take a look at this. This is Scutellospora and the second one is Gigaspora. Two important genera are there. When it comes to this Scutellospora, this the spore or the some kind of structure that is formed. Imagine this is some kind of globose kind of spore that is produced on the germination structure, and here they produce some kind of knobby kind of structures. We can see some kind of over echinolations, or I would say echinolations or knobby kind of structures. Knobby kind of structures are produced. So the auxiliary cells are the cells which are produced is here knobby. This is first one Scutellospora. This Scutellospora having a knobby kind of cells. When it comes to Gigaspora produces a globose auxiliary cells. Here the function of the globose auxiliary cells is unknown, but they contains some kind of spine-like projections. So this is some kind of thorns or spine-like projections are present. So Scutellospora, they contains knobby kind of structures. This is a germination orb. Above the orb, the spore is producing, contains knobby like. When it comes to Gigaspora produces auxiliary cells, and it contains some kind of projections or spine-like projections. So spine-like projections are present, but the only thing is that the function of these auxiliary cells is unknown. The next family is Fascispora. So the only genera is there, Fascispora, and there is only one species, important species, Fascispora scintillanus. So they form orbicles and vesicles, auxiliary cells, everything they will produce that exactly resembles like a scutellospora. We have already discussed some kind of thread-like structure, that is a hyphae, and auxiliary cells are produced with thorn-like projections, and they produces orbicles, vesicles, auxiliary cells, everything as it resembles like scutellospora. And they also a little bit resembles like a glomus in the way of forming spores. The way how it is forming spore, it actually resembles like glomus, but the germination walls are absent in glomus, whereas germination walls are present in this Sphaerospora. So coming to the next order, Archisporales. This Archisporal consists of three families: Archisporaceae, Ambisporaceae, and Geosiphinaceae. And we are going to discuss only two families, Archisporaceae and as well as Geosiphinaceae. So coming to the family Archisporaceae, the family consists of single genus, only one genus, that is Archispora. So they are dimorphic. Means two. They produces spores like glomide and as well as aclosporoid kind of spores. They forming both kind of aclosporoid kind of spores as like of aclospora, and also produces glomide kind of spores as like of a glomus. There are species like Archaeospora leptotricha, Archaeospora jerdamani. They are dimorphic. Dimorphic means di and means two, produces two kinds of spores. This dimorphism we have also studied in a fungi called saproligny, or dimorphism or diplanetism, right? So this Archaeosporaceae is also a dimorphic, where they produces both kind of spores as like a glomide spores as like a glomus, aclospora kind of spores or aclosporoid kind of spores. And there is a species called Archispora trapi. They produces only glomide kind of spores. The next family is Geosiphinaceae. Coming to this Geosiphinaceae, the one important species, Geosiphina pyriformis, we have already discussed. They have a kind of specialized mechanism that's called endocyanosis. We're actually having a good relationship with the nostoc, that is generally called blue-green algae cyanobacterium, which is having a symbiotic relationship with another bacteria. So which means these two having not to the plant roots, they having in between the bacteria, or maybe in between the organism, they having very good relationship, that is called endocyanosis. So this another thing about this Geosiphinaceae, the very important point is they will produce as bladders, we can also call as vesicles, some kind of swollen kind of structures. This is some kind of swollen kind of structures that can produce. This is mainly helpful for to harbor this nostoc. As I told you, it is association with another bacteria, or sorry, another cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. So this Geosiphinaceae, it is associated with another thing, is that is the nostoc or nostoc functiforme. For harbor or to support this nostoc functiforme, this Geosiphinaceae pyriformis or Geosiphon pyriformis, they will produce a specialized cells called bladders or vesicles, which are swollen kind of things that actually helps in harboring. So this I will show you the pictures, you will have a better idea about this. And these bladders are actually photosynthetically very active and helpful for the fixing of the nitrogen or atmospheric nitrogen, because this nostoc is also atmospheric nitrogen fixing organism. So generally, if you see, these bladders are vesicle especially are producing for nostoc, or to create a favorable conditions for nostoc for their association. And this generally bladders and vesicles are helpful in the fixation of atmospheric nitrogen. And there is this Geosiphon and nostoc is an intercellular association. In between, they are actually associated in between the cells, or they actually colonizes intercellularly. This is a picture. If you take it like some kind of bladders, or if you see here some kind of vesicles are formed, right? So this is generally for nostoc and all those things, where this Geosiphon fungi Geosiphon produces. Coming to generally, this Glomeromycota is actually created for a reason, just because of Geosiphon. The phylogenetic analysis of Geosiphon actually leads to the creation of Glomeromycota. So by seeing this, the scientists are observed vesicles or some kind of bladder-like structures or some kind of things. So where they have separated it, maybe probably it is before it is comes under maybe Zygomycota. A couple of fungi it was actually placed under Zygomycota, and a couple of things were actually Chytridiomycota. Maybe, I'm not sure. Now by seeing this Geosiphon, or by seeing this fungi, they actually created a new phylum or new group of fungi that is called Glomeromycota. Eventually leads to a new phylogenetic classification, that is a Glomeromycota. All this Glomeromycota group of fungi, they will produce like vesicles and arbuscles and all those. It's all about the production of vesicles or arbuscles or auxiliary cells and all those things. Let's have an easy understanding by classifying this the production of vesicles or arbuscle, what produces vesicle, what produces arbuscle and all those things. So one more order is left, right? Let's take a look into last one is paraglomerals or paraglomus. So this is only one last order, which consists of one important species, paraglomus. So there are three species which are present in the genus, which is almost produces a glomus kind of spores are present, and vesicles are rarely present, not continuously, maybe rarely present. The species are Archaeospora, paraglomus, which are actually distinguished from the glomus, mainly in rDNA sequences or their fatty acid analysis or morphology structures or arbuscle formation, and the absence of vesicles or maybe presence or absence of vesicles and all those things. Based on the structures of glomus, they are actually classified Archaeospora and paraglomus. They are distinguished from the glomus species. Another important species is a paraglomus. It is a very important species. They have a common ancestral lineage with the glomus, some sharing some common features of this glomus. Generally, they produce glomoid kind of spores without pigmentation. This is a very important one. Glomus generally produce maybe with pigmentation. It's a paraglomus which produces glomoid kind of spores without pigmentation. That is one of the important feature. Yeah, as I told you, this is all about the classification of production of vesicles or arbuscles and all those things. I have given some kind of a tabular form. Glomus produces vesicles, auxiliary cells are absent, and the glomus type of spores, germination wall absent, and germination structure is also absent. Aclospora, vesicles are produced, auxiliary cells no, glomus type no, germination wall is present, germination are produced. Entospora, Diversispora, Gigaspora, Scutellospora, Fascispora, and all those things I have given here in a tabular column, whether it is producing vesicle or auxiliary cells or glomus type and all those things. There is only one genus that is producing everything. For example, if you see Fascispora, they produce vesicle, they produce auxiliary cells, they produce glomus type of spore, and as well as germination wall is produced, and germination shield also it is having. So among all this Glomeromycota group of fungi, Fascispora is producing almost all kind of things like vesicles, auxiliary cells and all those things. So these are all some common features about Glomeromycota. For further doubts and guidance, student may refer this book, A Vision into Plant Pathology, a complete student version. Further doubts and clarification, student may reach us at www.geekyresearcher.com. Stay geeky and stay tuned. We are Team Geeky Researchers.